I like to paint dolls, and today I'm painting not one, but two huge Hulks. And as an added bonus, I'm going to do a direct comparison between two very popular resin printers.
I like to paint dolls.
Alright, now I know this is going to come as a total shock to you, because to look at me in this footage, you're thinking, that is a young man right there. Couldn't be a day over 25. But I am actually a grandfather. In fact, we just welcomed our 5th grandchild just a couple of weeks ago. And also a couple weeks ago, one of those grandkids turned 5 years old. And when I got started on making a model for him as a birthday present, there was no thought as to what that would be. Of course it was going to be a Hulk model. And here's the thing, I also like the Hulk, so I made 2 of these Hulks, painted them exactly the same, and I had my wife decide at the end which one was better, and that was the one that we gave to my grandson. And I also thought this is a great opportunity to do a direct comparison between my Anycubic Photon P1 and my Uniformation GK3. Take a look at the results and see which one turns out better. And at the end of the video, I'll give you my opinion as to which one I would recommend if you're in the market for one of these 2 printers. But before we get started with that, I do want to be very clear. This is not going to be an in-depth technical review of these printers. We're going to talk about print times and print quality and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not going to get into all of the detailed specs. If you want all of that information, I would recommend Fohammer. I think he's the best on YouTube when it comes to reviewing printers and stuff like that. If you want all of that technical data, that guy will take care of you. But for the purposes of this video, this is just going to be the opinions of a regular guy that likes to print dolls at night. Alright, so here's how I did this. First of all, I purchased this STL from Wicked 3D. They ran a special on their Patreon where they offered up like 5 models for 20 bucks, and I bought this like 3 months ago because I knew I wanted to do this one for my grandson. And so when it came time to finally do it, I downloaded it and then put it into Lychee software, oriented it, hollowed it, supported it, and then exported it one time for the Anycubic and one time for the GK3. Now, the exports are different because each printer has its own lift speeds and light off delays and all of those settings that are specific to the printer. But when it comes to the orientation, the hollowing, the rafts, the supports, all of that, everything was exactly the same. I just exported it twice, once to each individual printer. The prints went very smoothly, although I did think that there was going to be some drama when it came to plate 1 on the GK3. The first plate had the head, torso, and the little logo on it. And when I opened up the lid on the GK3 when the print was done, I found that the supports were all wrecked on the torso. Of course, it was the torso, the biggest piece in the whole model. And I was like, oh great, here we go. Like, I'm going to end up needing to reprint this thing. But thankfully, when I removed it from the supports, I found no issue whatsoever with the actual torso. In fact, it was perfect. So I'm not sure what happened there, but it did look pretty mangled as far as the supports goes, but it printed perfectly. One of the questions you might have is about print times. Is there a drastic difference between these 2 printers as far as print times goes? Is it true that the wave release technology gives you a faster print on the P1? Well, I'll put the times up on the screen here. You can see the total print time for the Photon P1 was 15 hours and 23 minutes. And the same prints on the GK3 was 23 hours and 39 minutes. So yes, the P1 is substantially faster, but does that affect quality? Well, you'll have to stay tuned to find out. And I also want to mention that when it comes to this comparison, we're only talking about the Hulk himself. I printed the bases on my FlashForge Adventure 5M FDM printer just to save time and money. FDM is easy, and this printer does a great job. So that's what I've been doing with almost all of my bases. So these are the results straight off of the printers before I had done any post-processing or gap filling or anything like that. All I had done to this point was glued the heads on and glued the arms to the torsos because they wouldn't stay together otherwise. They were both printed at a 0.05 layer height, and they both were printed using Sunlu standard resin. Looking at these results, you can see they are both absolutely fantastic. Now, this is a highly detailed model. There's a ton of texture in the skin with all of the veins and all of the muscles and all of that. And both printers did a phenomenal job with both of those. There really isn't any noticeable difference in the sizes of the gaps or anything like that. Both of them had reasonable sized gaps. This is a huge model with big pieces that you would expect there'd be some gaps, and there are, but nothing extreme. And they were pretty much the same on both models. And those support marks and all of that kind of stuff, again, you expect it to be there. I didn't find that either one of them had one excessive over the other or anything like that. They were both just absolutely fantastic. Now, there is one significant flaw that I noticed, and it's on the print from the GK3, but I don't want to make a big deal out of it because it was actually something that was very easily resolved, and that is there was some layer shifting on the pants. And so there's some layer lines going on that. It took all of about 30 seconds to sand it out, so it really wasn't anything to make a big deal out of, but it is noticeable, it is there, and it wasn't there on the P1, so had to be mentioned. All right, let's step away from the comparison of the two printers and actually start getting some work done on these models. I started off filling the gaps on the bases. I just used regular wood filler for that. It was very easy because it is a rocky base, so the wood filler just kind of blends right in. It barely needed any sanding at all. Once those gaps were filled, I primed the base with flat black from Rust-Oleum, and then I just left it alone. I didn't continue with the base because I needed somewhere to put the Hulks while I was painting them. This is a huge model, and I wanted to paint all of the greens with him together, so I decided to put him on the bases before it was painted. That way I could use that as a paint stand, and then I'll just go back to the bases once the Hulks are done. All right, let's start getting some paint on these Ruffalo twins. I started off priming it with flat black Rust-Oleum primer, just like I did the bases. I sprayed it outside because it's really stinky, and once that was dry, I went to Citadel Warpstone Glow as my kind of base color slash zenithal? I know, it's not a zenithal. I kind of thought it was gonna be. I thought the color was gonna be lighter than it was. I thinned it like 50% with water, and I just thought this green will serve as a really nice zenithal. I'm not gonna need to worry about the white zenithal, but this was a huge mistake. I admit that. It made way more work than it needed, but I mean, it all worked out in the end. But if I had used a white zenithal, I would have gotten all of those free highlights and free shadows and all of that, and it just would have made my life easier. I don't know if the results would have been better in the end, but it would have made things easier. So there it is. That's the only explanation I have for skipping the zenithal. I thought the green was going to be the zenithal. It wasn't.
Mark Ruffalo face in the sculpted clay, the familiar look coming out of the gray, every wrinkle, every muscle, every line.
Once the not-so-zenithal was dried, I switched to Kaleido Dark Green, focusing on the shadow areas, spraying from the bottom up. I didn't want the shadows to be black. I wanted them to be a nice dark green, and Kaleido Dark Green was great for that. But then I switched to just straight-up Kaleido Green, spraying from the top down, starting to build the highlights on this. One of the things I love about Kaleido paints is you don't have to thin them. Just put them in your airbrush and start spraying, which is great. It makes the whole process so much faster. This green is a great color for starting the process of building all of the highlights, but it was just kind of a base for the highlights. I wanted to start brightening these colors up, So I switched to Kaleido Lime Green, and I gotta be honest, this one wasn't the right fit. This wasn't the right fit for this particular project. It's a great color, but it didn't work here. So I made my own mixture using Kaleido Green and Kaleido Yellow. I went about 60% green, 40% yellow, and sprayed those highlight areas, making each pass a little smaller than the pass before it to build up those highlights almost to a point on his muscles and things like that. And then once all of that was in, I wanted to continue building it, so I added a little bit more yellow and then did it again, and then added a little bit more yellow and then did it again. Again, every single time, making it a little bit smaller of an area that I'm painting to build up those peaks on his muscles and all of that kind of stuff. And I ended up getting it to where it was about a 60% yellow, 40% green mixture for all of these highlights. And I was happy with it, but I still wanted it to pop a little bit more. So once I got to that final ratio of 60-40, I added a little bit of white to that too. And I just, again, wanted the peaks of all of his muscles and his nose and his forehead and his chin and toes, you know what I'm saying? All of those areas where light would be reflecting directly off of it, I hit with that super bright color, and I thought that that was it. I thought the greens were done. But as we move along, you'll see, no, the greens were definitely not done. Since I thought the greens were done, I moved on to some of the details, starting with his toenails and fingernails. I just used Orc Flesh contrast paint from Citadel, and then moved on to his pants. Now, my instincts tell me purple. We got to go purple here because it's the Hulk and he wears purple pants. But this Hulk here is actually from the Avengers movie, the first one. So he's not wearing purple pants in that. He's wearing like a super dark blue gray kind of pants. So I painted them with infantry blue from Vallejo, and I didn't film that. I don't know why, but once they were blue, I came in with a dry brush of deck tan to give it the wear that it needed. And then once again, I didn't film this, but I used Drakenhof Nightshade in my airbrush to darken all of that up and again give it some of the wear in the shadows and all of that. The pants turned out really good. Nothing special. They're pants. I painted the pants.
Patience and a whole lot of time. Brush in hand and the colors go down. Green on the skin, black on the crown, purple pants.
All right, so I know you're looking at this and you're thinking, those look like Hulk midgets. What the hell is happening here? Well, as I stared at these two figures for several days, I just couldn't get past the fact that there was something missing. I just felt like it looked too generic green. It just didn't look right. It looked okay, but it wasn't perfect. This is going to be a gift from my grandson. I can't have it not be perfect. What is missing? And I racked my brain for a while, and then I finally figured it out. What's missing is yellow. What's missing is brightness to this. Yeah, the Hulk is a dark figure, but at the same time, there needs to be a brightness to it. It needs to pop. And the only thing I could come up with to create that was straight up yellow. I used Vallejo yellow, mixed it about 50-50 with water, and then I just started coming in on those highlights again, and this was it. This is exactly what it needed. I felt this massive relief after I did this because it really did just bring it home. It gave it that thing that it was missing, and I was much, much happier with it after that. Now, as far as why he's set up that way, I had already had the pants painted at this point, and I just wanted to put them together so that I could paint them easier, and I didn't feel like masking the pants off and all of that. So I put them together looking like a Hulk midget, and then had to paint the other leg separate. No big deal, but it's fine. Really happy about this. This was bothering me for a few days. Once I put this yellow on, it was like, that's it. It is ready now to be delivered to my grandson. What I mean, after I finish painting everything else, but at least the greens are ready.
The monster crash, Hulk smash, two big fists and a whole lot of
Now that the greens actually are done, I can move on to the base, and this was very simple. I sprayed the perimeter area that's supposed to look like metal with gunmetal, very simple, and then for the dirt, mud, ground, rocks area that he's standing on, I started off with brown leather from Vallejo, coating the entire thing, and then came in with Agrax Earthshade in all of the shadow areas and in the bottom of all of the cracks and all of that kind of stuff, and then dry brushed it with Iraqi sand to bring out those highlights. And then for the final thing on it, I used Griffcharger Gray from Citadel, again to highlight some of those rocky areas and all of that, and I don't know, try to make it look a little bit more realistic. The star of the show here really is the Hulk, but I didn't want the base to look terrible. But there was only one thing left to do on the base, which was to paint the logo that I just wish wasn't on here, but it is what it is. Everybody feels like there needs to be an emblem or a logo of some type on the bases. I don't know. I wish sculptors would stop doing that. If you can't look at this model and tell that it's the Hulk, then I don't know what's wrong with you. I mean, who's going to look at that and be like, oh, is that the character from Spaceballs? No, everybody knows this is the Hulk. But anyway, I painted that logo with purple. This is where purple finally was able to come in. I just painted it a really, really dark purple, and the interior of it was black. I don't know. I mean, it's not a big deal. I didn't want it to stand out from a mile away, but I couldn't not paint it. All right, now it's time for my favorite part of this entire process, putting the face on, painting the face. I don't call it a portrait because to me a portrait is a photograph, but I know I'm also an old man, so whatever. I know you are confused because in the beginning you thought I was 25, but no, I'm 52 years old. And so to me a portrait has always been a photograph, but what do I know? To get this guy's head and face painted, I started off with black Vallejo paint for the hair. Very simple. I used that on both his hair and the eyebrows. And then for the mouth, I coated everything on the inside of the mouth with Scale 75 Orcish Dermis, followed up with a little bit of Careboard Crimson after it had dried to just give it a little bit more life. I painted the teeth with Deck Tan. And then for his eyes, I also painted the whites of his eyes with Deck Tan. The eyes were very challenging because they're teeny, itty bitty eyes in this giant man, which I've always thought is kind of funny. But I did get them done. They're sculpted in. The irises are sculpted in by Wicked. So it did, even though it was really small, make it a whole lot easier. For the irises, I started off with a dark green, then used a lighter green, and then I implemented the same tactic that I used on previous models. I used fluorescent yellow from Monument Hobbies to really make those eyes pop, and then put Orc Flesh from Citadel over top of that, then followed it up with the specular highlight, the black pupil, the gloss on the eyes, all that stuff. Then I also used Orc Flesh on the lips, followed that up with the gloss, and this was really done. I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about when it comes to the face, or portrait if you want to call it that, on the Hulk. It was just a lot of fun to do. Even though the eyes were itty bitty, it was still a lot of fun, and this is what makes it the Hulk. It no longer looks like a pile of plastic with a bunch of green slop all over it. It looks like the Hulk, and I'm excited, and I think my grandson will be too. Oh, and I almost forgot, I did dry brush a little bit of green on his hair after the black dried, as well as his eyebrows, just to give it a little bit more flavor.
Madness on display. I like to paint dolls, and Hulk is here to smash.
So here they are. They're done, ready for inspection. But I gotta explain how I do this. Whenever I make a model for me and I make a second one to give away as a gift, I have my wife come in and she picks which one is better between the two. So that's why I have them set up here. I have the light directly on them, and I asked her to come in and make her decision. I think I know which one it is, but
Okay, let's. They look identical.
well, that's kind of good.
Those pants look a little bit more worn than those. Like those look less worn. And I mean, he looks so good. They both look amazing. It's almost like the only way I could choose is by the pants. Do I like them more worn or do I like them more dark? And
That was not done intentionally, by the way. That just happened.
I kind of like the worn because it goes with the rip look. So I like this one.
Okay.
Left.
That is the opposite one I thought you would pick. So I think the one on the right is better, but I'm the one that's been sitting here staring at them for 2 weeks. So if you think the one on the left looks better, then that's the one I'll give to him.
You know what? He's going to be 5 years old.
I don't think he's going to care.
I don't think he's going
Either
to.
one.
He's going to be like, that's Hulk. Whoa. So yeah.
So there we are. The verdict is in. She chose the one on the left. And if you're curious as to which one that is, as far as which printer it came off of, well, that's the one that came off of the Uniformation GK3. But at this point, once it's been completely finished and all of that, it really shouldn't matter because one shouldn't stand out against the other. I mean, they both printed absolutely beautifully. So really, when you're going to be judging between the two printers, it really needs to be done before any paint is put on them. So the fact that she chose the one that came off the GK3 is really, it means absolutely nothing. But if you're in the market for a resin printer and you have your eyes on these two printers and you want to know which one I would recommend, well, I'm going to tell you, but we got to talk about a couple of things first. And I think the biggest thing is both of these printers print absolutely phenomenally. You are going to get results that are going to blow your mind off of both of these printers. I think both of them will make you happy from a results standpoint. What it really comes down to, if you're comparing these two printers, is features. There's features that the GK3 has that the P1 doesn't. But guess what? There's also features that the P1 has that the GK3 doesn't, like pressure sensing, the wave release technology, which definitely does make it print faster. And then also intelligent monitoring and safety checks before the print starts, which makes sure you're not going to rip your FEP or anything like that. These are great features on the P1 that the GK3 simply doesn't have. But the GK3 has the carbon filter, which I'm telling you actually makes a difference. You can operate a GK3 in your house and it's not going to run you out of there because of the odors. It has a much better app. I love both apps, but the Uniformation is way better. It has that auto feed system, which I actually don't use anymore because I don't find it to be necessary on a 10-inch printer. But if you're somebody that likes to have things automatically top off for you so that you don't have to have running out of resin anxiety, that's going to be great for you. And then the GK3 also has the best build plate I've ever seen. It's the easiest to clean. It's just so simple and it's the best. So which of those features is going to be important to you? Which of those features has the most value to you? Because the GK3 is substantially more expensive than the P1. I think it's like $150 more. So in all actuality, you can get a P1 and a wash and cure station for the same money that it'll cost you for the GK3. So you have to keep that in mind. But what's more important to you? At the end of the day, what's important to me is print quality. And so when it comes to print quality, there really is no choice. They're both absolutely the same. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents. If you want me to tell you, if you're going to put a gun to my head and you're going to force me to pick between these two, I would tell you to buy the P1. And the reason is simple. You get more bang for your buck. If the print quality is the same off of both of these devices, then money should be one of the main factors. And like I said earlier, you can get the printer, a wash and cure station from Anycubic, and maybe even a couple of bottles of resin for the same cost that you would pay for the GK3. But don't get it twisted. I am in love with the GK3. I love that machine. It has been wonderful for me, and I absolutely love using it. I'm just saying, if you make me choose between the two, I'm going to tell you your best bang for your buck is with the P1. So there you go, 2 green Mark Ruffalos in one video, and my 2 cents on the GK3 and the P1. At the end of the day, folks, here's the real deal. Both of these printers are absolute powerhouses. They're both fantastic. You're going to be thrilled with either one. Just depends on how much money you got, really. I mean, you're not going to be disappointed with either one of those. So, take all of those factors and make your decision. But you're going to be happy with either one that you choose. So thank you so much for watching this with me. Thank you for hanging out with me and going through this journey. And in case you're wondering, yes, I have already delivered my grandson Andreas's Hulk to him, and he was thrilled. It's always one of those things where it's like you're expecting this over-the-top reaction, but he's 5. He doesn't really understand that, yeah, Papa John is giving you this, but you can't play with it. You just have to look at it, and one day you'll appreciate it. It's one of those things. But still, I love doing this kind of stuff. It's my favorite thing in the world to make models for loved ones or for friends. And to make one for myself and a loved one just makes it that much better. So thank you for going along this journey with me. I had a whole lot of fun. I'm going to keep rambling if I don't end the video now. So I'll see you on the next one. So long now.
In the cage on the build plate stage. Cut it loose. Now the pieces are waiting. Sand that edge till the shape starts changing. Every little detail, every scar, turning two monsters into movie stars. Green under the light. Green, bring him to life. Oh, smile.